Steppenwolf Theater presents Windfall. It's a world premiere from Academy Award-winning writer and ensemble member Terrell Alvin McCraney. Windfall is about a Chicago father who loses his child in a clash with police. He's then visited by three strangers who advise him, take the cash settlement and get out of town. It's a communal experience created for this moment. Windfall runs now through May 31st. Don't miss this world premiere production and get your tickets today at steppenwolf.org.
We're not saying a visit to Bloomington, Indiana will turn you into a forest-bathing, sandal-wearing, dissertation-defending, stray cat rescuing, nonprofit starting, Monroe Lake paddling, guitar strumming, march organizing, vinyl listening, leaf watching, zen finding, coffee roasting, yoga practicing, beer drinking, bread baking, co-op joining, pottery throwing, vintage thrifting, bike everywhereing, art appreciating, farmers market shopping, biz thinking, football fan. But we're not saying it won't. Visit Bloomington. See how it inspires you.
Today on CityCast Chicago, Chicago bridges just received their annual report card. The Red Line extension finally breaks ground on the far south side. And what would you stand in a long-ass line for? It's Tuesday, April 28th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. We've got producer Michelle Navarro in the building. What's up, Michelle? It's been a minute.
Hey, Jacoby, what's up?
I'm doing well, G. Before we get into today's conversation, Michelle, I want to take a moment to thank every single person who signed up to become a CityCast Chicago neighbor over the last week or so. Really, thank you to Julianne H., Catherine M., Murray D., Barry T., Brandon W., Matthew S., Leah M., Carson M., and Jasmine B. for stepping up, for joining our Neighbors program. We appreciate you. We can't wait to see you at one of our next CityCast Chicago neighbor events. All of these people are joining a growing community of people who are getting ad-free listening. Like I said, who are going to come on that tour with us very soon. But also at the end of this episode are going to get to hear our CityCast Chicago Poetry Slam. I have now heard all of the poems, and shout out to Emmy. Shout out to Simone. Shout out to Chima. Man, I can't even give you a hint of what the poems are about, but they're all very different. They're damn good. I started off with one that I'm going to be real with you. Probably going to catch you off guard. You might not see it coming. But it's a nice set of poems for you. But again, you only going to get that if you signed up to become a CityCast Chicago neighbor.
Yes, thank you so much to everyone who joined during our spring campaign. And for those of you who missed the campaign or didn't get a chance to sign up, it is not too late. You can still become a CityCast Chicago neighbor. You could still get the bonus content. You could still show up to our CityCast Chicago neighbors members only event by signing up at membership.citycast.fm/Chicago. Our doors are always open for new neighbors. We love welcoming y'all. And so you can sign up for just $10 a month. That's at membership.citycast.fm/Chicago.
Let's jump into our stories today. As of last Wednesday, we are officially in bridge lifting season. What exactly do I mean when I say that? Well, all 27 bridges along the main and south branches of the Chicago River, those lift twice a week, one at a time, for about 8 to 12. That's what they officially say. Maybe it get up to like 15, 20. This is to make sure that the recreational boats traveling to and from the storage yards around this time of the year can go by with no problems involved. They lift at 9 a.m. on Wednesdays, 8 a.m. on Saturdays until late June. They'll start up again in the fall. But now that we're back in the season, it's gotten me thinking about the state of Chicago's bridges. There are a few crucial ones right now that are under repair. And so a lot of detours around there, a lot of traffic that's been impacted. And recently, the Chicago Bridge Report has come out. They surveyed not just the 27 that will be going up during this lift season, but all 601 of Chicago's bridges. And Michelle, what did they find?
Yeah, so the Chicago Sun-Times came out with an analysis of this report that came out and found that 1 in 6 Chicago bridges are in poor condition. By
Oh,
poor, so there's three kind of sections that you could be rated as, right? So you could be poor, which means structurally something needs to happen because they are not in good condition. Though poor doesn't mean that it immediately might fall down, right? But it just
okay.
means that they need some repair, something needs to happen there. Then there's the fair, and then there's the general, like, okay, this bridge is great. So those are the three kind of ways that these bridges get rated. And so out of the 601 bridges in Chicago, 100 of them are listed as poor, which is kind of the same condition that, if you remember, the State Street Bridge, which just opened last month after about a year of emergency repairs, it was also listed as poor. And so you can see
Mhm.
that, it could be a little serious when a bridge gets that poor rating. Engineers were planning on doing repairs months after it had shut down.
So you mean like they had already scheduled to do some repairs, but the the state of the bridge, it needed to be shut down before that scheduled maintenance began. Got
Exactly.
you. I
Exactly. So it
got you.
was it was kind of under an emergency repair. So they had to kind of act fast, shutting down the bridge sooner than what the city expected.
Got it.
Um, Chicago has double the national average. So nationally, on average, there's about 6.7% of bridges that need repair. Chicago is looking at 16.7%, which is a pretty significant number,
Mhm.
especially for a city like Chicago that has, the most movable bridges in North America. We have a total of 37 movable bridges. 32 of them are on the Chicago River, which I take a lot of pride in. I think we always get known as like the city of skyscrapers, which is also pretty cool to be considered that,
Mhm.
but to be compared, to cities like Amsterdam, cities in Germany that also, have a lot of bridges. It's a pretty special thing. But of course, it's only special if we can brag that our bridges are nice and safe.
That's
I
what I
don't know
was going to
about you,
say.
Jacoby, because I live by a viaduct on Pershing and Western, and it does not look so good.
Some of these viaducts scare the hell out of you when you're walking up underneath them. Luckily, a few, for example, on the Metro Electric line have gotten recent construction, like the one I always take, which is the 87th Woodruff stop, has gone through some construction. The one at 79th Street is currently going through construction. But when you are on or under some of these movable bridges that we talk about in particular, you can see some of the damage. In fact, when you're up on some of those movable bridges and other bridges across the city, you can see some of the decay, some of the metal rusted. You can see the concrete and the potholes are all busted up in some places. And just on Preservation Illinois' 2026 list of the 7 most endangered buildings in Chicago, the river bridges and the bridge tender houses were on that list. And so it's not a closed secret that our bridges need work, that they need repair. But we've also seen that when they finally get the maintenance, they do inevitably cause traffic headaches.
Yeah, the Chicago Department of Transportation is responsible for more than 300 bridges and viaduct structures. So it's a lot for them to keep their eyes on. But bridges are inspected at least every 2 years. And you can find these results of the inspections online. The information is publicly available. And like I mentioned, a bridge is considered poor or structurally deficient if any of the three scores is below a 4. But like I also
Mhm.
mentioned, that doesn't mean that it's at risk of falling anytime soon. Now, if a bridge is rated poorly, then it's supposed to be inspected more. It has to be looked at a little bit more often. And transportation officials are the ones that are responsible to close bridges if they're dangerous.
Yeah, I was going to say 2 bridges that the city is planning on closing early next year are the Division Street bridges over the North Branch at Goose Island. And both of those bridges are in such poor condition, according to the Sun Times, that they have to be replaced entirely. And so this is something we're going to see more and more of in the coming years. And last year, when we had that bottleneck moment when, what was it, around 4 or 5 were
5
closing,
bridges.
yeah, around the same time, a lot of people really spoke out and said, where was the heads up on this? We didn't realize all of this was happening around the same time. Remind us what those bridges were.
Yeah, so The Chicago Avenue and Halsted bridges are closed until the end of the year, so in 2026. The oldest bridge in Chicago, or the oldest bascule bridge, which is like bridges that just open, split in the middle. That's kind of the classic Chicago movable bridge. The Cortlandt Street Bridge is closed until mid next year, so mid 2027. And then the over 100-year-old Lake Street Bridge is not set to reopen until 2028. So there's still going to be some time where there's going to be some bridges that are going to be closed. And of course, like you mentioned, bridge closures cause traffic. Like it caused congestion. We saw that with the State Street Bridge when it was closed. And because of these kind of congestion in downtown and other areas, alders were able to pass this ordinance in city council about getting the heads up about a month before bridge closures so that they can figure out. This, of course, excuses any emergency bridge closures because, I mean, those are emergencies. But this kind of had alders talking in city council about, getting a heads up when a bridge is going to close because they have to figure out, different ways that commuters can get around the city because it could cause, some good amount of traffic. But that just reminds you that bridges are crucial and taking care of our bridges are crucial. The American Road and Transportation Builders Association is a group that advocates for funding. So when we repair bridges, it's a mix of federal, state, and local funding that goes into these bridges. And so this group kind of advocates for more federal funding. Looking at the state entirely, they found that 8% of bridges in the state, in Illinois, are in need of repair. So this is something that we can see across the state. But in a city like Chicago, where we rely, heavily on our bridges, most of our movable bridges are on the Main, the South, and the North Branch of Chicago. There's about 5 in Calumet River. And their harbor is actually still the busiest in the region, which is something I learned right before this recording. I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. But yeah, bridges are important to fix. And, if you're someone who lives around or a bridge is part of your commute, especially the ones we named that are going to be closed for a while, you should keep up on your bridge safety. I'm actually going to, after this, I'm going to look into the database and look into the viaducts that are around me because I'm very curious about what their scores were.
Mm-hmm. And just seeing these broader state numbers, 26,927 bridges across Illinois, and about 4,200 are identified as needing repairs, about 8%. And to your point, we can talk for days about the traffic concerns, need for transparency, the fear of, are we going to be able to secure all of this funding? But at the end of the day, these are like crucial networks. Our public transit runs across many of these bridges, obviously the pedestrian and car traffic, the highway traffic, the interstate commerce and trucking that moves across these bridges. And so it's clear that we both need to be prepared to deal with these in the years to come, but also our lawmakers need to be prepared to put up a real plan on how to successfully tackle all of these forthcoming construction projects in a way that makes sense. If you want to learn more about this report, please visit the link in our show notes. Now, if you are like me and you love theater that sparks conversation long after the curtain call, then listen up. Timeline Theater is bringing An Enemy of the People to the stage this spring, and it's the Chicago premiere at Timeline's new home at 5035 North Broadway in Uptown. This gripping play tackles big questions about truth, integrity, and what it costs to stand your ground when the entire crowd turns against you. Even though it's a classic story, the issues feel urgent, modern, and let's just say very Chicago. An Enemy of the People runs May 6th through June 7th, and it's the perfect choice for anybody who wants theater that challenges, provokes, and entertains all at once. Get your tickets and details at timelinetheater.com. The Pulitzer Prize and Tony Award-winning musical South Pacific is coming to the Paramount Theater in downtown Aurora, and it's got everything folks have come to love about the World War II drama. spy missions, captivating love stories, and of course, all the classic songs like Some Enchanted Evening, Bolly Hey, I'm Gonna Wash That Man Right Out of My Hair. South Pacific is running from April 29th to June 14th at Paramount Theater, and tickets start at $31 when purchased in person. There are additional fees when you buy it on your phone or online. You can get your tickets today at ParamountAurora.com. From talking about bridge construction to talking about the extension of the Red Line, Michelle, just last month, a federal judge ruled that the Trump administration has to temporarily unfreeze almost $2 billion in federal funds for the Red Line extension project. So if people remember, a couple of years ago, we talked about when Chicago announced they had finally secured enough funding to move forward with the FAR Red Line extension. This will create 4 new stops from 95th down to 130th Street. This is something that's been talked about for decades at this point, 60 years plus. We had an entire episode covering what this could mean for all of those neighborhoods, how important this is for the thousands of Chicagoans who live on the far south side. But the Trump administration quickly threatened the federal funds in relation to this as they were on their anti-DEI crusade, right? The white supremacist crusade to basically find anything that says Black, immigrant, queer, anything that was about building inclusion for women, femme-owned businesses, like to root this out at all levels. And eventually the Red Line became one of those projects that was under attack. But it seems that there was some good news, not only last month when the judge ruled in favor of releasing these funds, but just last week as well, Michelle.
Yeah, Jacoby, like you mentioned, after decades, they finally broke ground at the Red Line extension at the far southwest side. This is 5.6 miles, which is exciting because, like you said, this is an area of our city that is not getting the love that it deserves in terms of transit. We're constantly talking about, transit-oriented development and how important it is for our city. And so for this to finally happen is a big deal. And I know we talked that, groundbreakings and this and that is very kind of just for the show, right? These ceremonial ways. But, as a Southsider, I'm not a far Southsider, but as a Southsider in general, it makes me really excited that we get to include this whole group of Chicagoans on the CTA and just make it more readily available for them.
100%. I've hit all the libraries on the far south side, essentially, from Altgeld Gardens to West Pullman, and there is a Metro Electric line that runs that way. You do see the bus routes down there, but for so many people who have been advocating for this extension, they talk about how they feel cut off to parts of the city. Like we could talk again forever till our face turns blue about the disinvestment, about the way people narratively just shit on the far south side of the city, how people pretend it's not a part of the broader city of Chicago. But as somebody who is from the far south side, spent, years on 119th and State with my homies, this is one of those things that, price tag aside, I think is a worthy investment in the city, broadening out our public transit, creating more access. Like you say, the new housing development projects that are going to start popping up around some of these stops is critical. The type of investment this can bring to small businesses in the area, the ways it could bring people to more of the restaurants, the National Monument, bring people to the neighborhood is really important. I know tons of people are making their housing decisions based on how close they live to a CTA stop. And so the fact that there will be new stops at 103rd and 111th near Eggleston, and then 115th in Michigan, and then 130th near Altgeld Gardens. And then they're also building a new rail yard and maintenance shop at 120th and Cottage Grove. The price tag has already ballooned to some $5.75 billion, but if all goes well, the hope is that these stops will be open and available by 2030. Now, when we start talking about actual dates, I definitely start to get a little weary, not only because of the threats to federal funding, but the rising costs we've seen as it relates to construction, demolition, and utility changes are still moving, I think, up until 2027. And so they're hoping to start track and station constructions this year. That'll go through 2029, and their hope everything is done by 2030, which, again, it's already 2026. So that's about around the corner.
2030 isn't far, especially when you think of the other day I was on the Orange Line and I was seeing that the State and Lake, like on the loop map in the Orange Line trains, it shows like State and Lake is closed until 2029. And I was like, that's not that far away for one station, let alone for 4 new stations. So hopefully things stay on track and we can, hop on the red line and get down way more down south than we used to. I always get really excited about new train stations, but specifically transit-oriented development. I'm one of those people, as people know, I do not have my license, so my life revolves around transit and, rideshare. But a big thing for me was to be close to multiple bus lines and multiple train lines. And so it's excited to see, research has shown that, when we construct and develop around transit, everyone benefits, businesses, commuters. This opens up a whole new neighborhood for people who rely on transit. And so it's really exciting to see because, as we know, a lot of the communities that are really connected to transit, their rents are up when we think about areas surrounding the loop, areas that have access to good, reliable transit. And so it's exciting that we get to open up the CTA for more people and for more folks who deserve it. Also, looking at this Block Club coverage, I completely forgot that this was former Mayor Richard J. Daley's plan. Like he had promised
this was originally announced back
1969.
I was gonna say 69. And I remember when we had our episode about it, my grandma talked about it, my mom talked about it. It's always been top of mind. And again, I've been, in the far south side forever. My people still stay Calumet Heights, Rosemore, Beverly, Pullman, like it, and you have no other choice than if you're not taking the Metro, or you got to get off at 95th and then take a bus, get off at 95th, walk, take a ride share. Like you got to take multiple stops. And so again, just getting closer to the very end of the city. And then next, I want to see the far southeast side too, man. Hegwish and Jeffrey Manor, South Chicago. Like, it's clearly expensive, but I think we can build a much more ambitious rail system in the decades to come if we're really serious about, connecting all Chicagoans to all parts of the city, deprioritizing cars, promoting pedestrian safety, pushing up cyclists. Like, I think building a more robust and a more inventive and creative and far-reaching transit system is the way to get there.
My pitch, if anyone in the CTA, anyone in the city is listening, is to do a train line down Western that connects all the Western stops on all the lines on the west side of the city. That's my dream line. Just imagine how accessible it would be, right?
Yes.
Just like straight shot, all of Western. Western already needs repairs. Just throw the line in there.
Talk about lines. Michelle, I don't know if you saw the videos from people outside of Pop-Up Bagels over the weekend, the new viral bagel shop up in Lincoln Park. I only heard about it because a couple of creator videos got to me where people were essentially either questioning why, of all things, you're going to wait in the line for a bagel is your choice, especially these bagels that come from The Northeast side really hit big in New York when a bunch of investors got in on it. Another person called them private equity bagels.
That
Uh,
was hilarious. Chris Vasquez on Instagram, because once you
yes.
trace back the owners, it's private equity owned. And so
hmm
they
I
have,
think the company
aside
is
from
Stripe, based out of New York. I got some major investors also from like Michael Phelps and
OpenAI,
Michael Strahan and some other big names. Like, yeah, behind, every pop up viral shop, we got a question. Is this a Nepo bagel? Like, is this a private equity bagel? And I'm
do you
always,
support big bagels?
yeah, I'm always willing to do that work. Um, but more than that, I also this got me thinking about like, what are you willing to stand in a line for? Because also this weekend, Joe Fresh Goods he dropped 3 new pairs of shoes. He dropped the whole line. Let's Get Weird, right? Clothes, shoes with New Balance. But he announced like Thursday or something that he was dropping a limited edition one at the MCA. And my first thought is, it's going to be a line there. On Saturday, Bad Butter, which is a bakery that was located inside of a hotel in the West Loop, and I think also started as like a pop-up. They just opened their own brick and mortar. Shout out to Chef Dan. And they had a line. And I'm like, I didn't have Bad Butter. I hit on one of the Joe Fresh goods. I didn't stand in any of these lines, but of the 3, I'd be willing to stand in the line to get one of them Bad Butter desserts, one of them pastries. I have stood in some line for some Joe shoes. So Michelle, one, would you stand in line for a bagel? And if the answer is no, what would you stand in line for?
I would not stand in line for private equity bagels. Also, if I go to Lincoln Park, I am hanging out at Lincoln Park on the
Mhm.
lake or at the park or doing something else. I wouldn't go for a bagel for sure. We have plenty of good sandwiches closer to me, but yeah, I would not support Big Bagel. But I'm okay with standing in lines for stuff. When you asked this question in the morning meeting, I was just thinking about yesterday. I went to go visit my parents in Gage Park, and I went to Rosas Tamales. And if you go, there's a Sunday morning rush. The line was almost out the door. My dad, on the other hand, did not want to wait. He left me and told me to walk home. It was only a couple blocks, so it's fine, but it just shows you the different in patience. I do have patience. I was like, I want tamales, I'll wait here. It was quick. Like
Uh-huh.
sometimes it's more the illusion of a long line and it actually goes by fast. So I always have to do some type of like calculations to figure
Yeah.
out like, okay, how fast is this line moving?
Because I was like, it's a distinction. Like if there's like, I paid for a concert or I'm going to see a show and like the line is a part of that, that's one thing. But I'm thinking
That's
like, no,
different.
I know if I want to go to Fat Peach, for example, I'm about to have to stand in a line
I've
to
waited
to
at
make it
Fat
happen.
Peach before. Yeah,
Mhm.
Fat Peach I've waited for.
That's the bakery in Bridgeport if people ain't hip.
Yep.
Mhm.
And we walked over to Pamasano Park and had our pastries there. It was definitely worth it. We got a coffee before, which I think also
Mhm.
helps. If I get a coffee before and I'm like in line and I'm with friends, it just changes the vibe versus it just being by yourself. It's kind of sad when you're by yourself. It also feels very vulnerable to be in a line. I
Yes.
think that's the main thing. You feel very vulnerable, you feel very seen. People are looking, like you said, people are
I was like,
judging you
do you
sometimes.
judge like when you walk past a line and like a bunch of people are waiting? Like if you were to walk past that bagel line in that moment, are you thinking about, well, I wait in lines too, so to each their own, or are you judging based off the fact that it's a bagel shop? Are you like, this is a ridiculous line? This
No,
make no sense.
I don't like to judge because like I said, I've waited for interesting things before too. So I'm no one to judge. Also, I know how vulnerable it is to wait in a line. So I don't want to judge anyone because I know I kind of feel like that
Yeah.
too. Sometimes if I see a line though, I will ask people like, oh, what are you waiting in line for? And people have asked me that when I've been in weird lines.
And they say a la boo boo.
And like just how viral things happen. Like it's just things just blow up so fast overnight. And so it's something that you kind of, if you want to stay hip to new stuff, like you're gonna have to face a line. But yeah, I'll wait for food depending. I waited in Kasama's line years ago when they blew up after the bear. It was worth it. It was really good. That was different though. Like that's a sit down situation.
Yeah. Food and clothes, I'll wait for. Food and clothes. I'm growing more impatient with lines to get inside of like a lounge or a bar or something. Like I set a timer. I'm like, if I'm not at a certain point by a certain time, I'm leaving.
Easy does it. I will wait if I know the DJ is going to be good. There's also this ungodly hour where you can bypass the line, but that's like midnight to 1. And so it's like an hour before it close. So you can risk going that late and skipping the line. One time I waited outside of the Cerise for an embarrassingly amount of time because it was after a Lala after show and we thought SZA was inside. We did not make it. We were about to get to the front of the line and they were like, we're not letting people in anymore. And we were just like, oh. So that was so bogus. But after that, we were like, you know what? We ended up going to Easy Does It because there was no line at that point over there. So it ended up being a good night. But after that, I'm just like, yeah, I can't stand in club or bar lines because you never know.
Last summer, and they just announced that they just dropped a lineup for Tuesdays on the Terrace at MCA. And last summer I went and I was in line for a little bit and I dropped out. I was just like, this is just too long. I couldn't do it. Again, if you're going to stand in line for the bagel, do you? Like, if you're going to stand in line for, a morning croissant, do you? I am not here to judge. And so I'm always interested in people's patience. Like, what are you willing to stand for? So please let us know. 773-780-0246. What in Chicago is worth it to you to stand in a long line? And I think for long line, I'm thinking on your feet for longer than, what you think, Michelle, like a half an hour?
Yeah, longer than 30 minutes.
Yeah, longer than 30 minutes. Like home of the hoagie, that's part of it. I know I'm going to be waiting for a minute. So I'm going to still go and get it. Yeah, I'm interested to see. I'm sure somebody will be like, I was in that line. Are you judging me? No, we're not. I hope it was good.
Yeah.
I want to give a huge thank you to our creative producer, Michelle Navarro.
Thanks, Jacoby.
Before we get out of here, we've got a special segment for all of our City Cast Chicago neighbors. As promised, this is the first ever and hopefully annual City Cast Chicago Poetry Slam. Enjoy. For everybody else listening, please remember you can sign up to become a CityCast Chicago neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. Thank you to everybody who has signed up over the last couple of weeks. It means the world to us. Seriously, this is one of the ways we keep this podcast and this newsletter going. And I know you're thinking as an individual, seriously, if I give you $10 a month, you telling me that's the difference between y'all making more and not? And the answer is yes, because your $10 plus they $10 equal $20. And what we need is $40. So come on, let's get to that $40 holler. One more thing. Some good news. International Jazz Day is this Thursday, and I want to put y'all on Jazz and Gumbo, Brazilian jazz on vinyl at Row 24 in the South Loop. It's kicking off at 8 o'clock, and they're going to have a special gumbo prepared by award-winning Chef Ra. I'm going to drop links for you in the show notes. If you're looking for more events, including free ones, please check out our events calendar at chicago.citycast.fm. We're going to be back in the building bright and early tomorrow with some very special guests. We'll talk to you then. Peace.